I've been known to be wrong before, and so I have to admit it, and I will. Captain Marvel was as terrible as some people were saying. I was blinded by my own politics. What I dismissed as being a coordinated effort by trolls from Reddit and elsewhere, people I dismissed as just being angry white boys, they called it. Captain Marvel just wasn't very good. It was entirely skippable in the MCU. Brie Larson's acting was flat. The film undershot its box office goal tremendously, and worst of all, it was... Alright, and that's exactly as much time as it's going to take for it to count as a view. Thank you, Sight Guys, Captain Marvel ruled. Not only was it the second biggest MCU opening weekend ever, Brie Larson was incredible and fun in the title role. Ben Mendelsohn is amazing, and things explode a lot. And the movie is about so much more than feminism, but it's not about feminism. Sure, there are drawbacks, but the good here massively outweighs my minor complaints. Hi, I'm Dan Umpton, and this is the Doomcast. For real though, out of 20 plus films in the MCU, it's maybe somewhere in the top 10. Maybe not for everybody, but we have to consider that that's also probably by virtue of the fact that there's 21 pretty damn good MCU films, 10 of which are maybe masterpieces. Overall, Captain Marvel's a really solid origin tale. It starts in the middle of the action, it has a couple really cool twists throughout. Carol Danvers' character is not defined by any relationship with a man, no romantic angle or even a hint at one. The closest male relationships that Carol has in the movie are with guys whose ass she's constantly saving or kicking very hard, respectively. What it does well are big action, solid introduction, cool insights into some of my favorite characters in the MCU, lays the groundwork for a sequel, and turns a number of my expectations about what Endgame might be on their head. Captain Marvel isn't a feminist film explicitly, in the way that Doctor Strange wasn't about magic and Black Panther wasn't about the politics of Wakanda. Doctor Strange was low-key a subversive film about non-violence and non-aggression. Black Panther was about neoliberalism versus progressivism versus revolutionary leftism, and also black identity globally, and also, yeah, about Wakanda. But Captain Marvel is about intersectionality, the dimensions and the scale of oppression with a metaphorical scale that's galactic. So, it's worth seeing, and that's great. But from here on out, if you haven't seen it, there are major spoilers. I'm not kidding. I'm going to spoil portions of it. Not the whole movie, but you probably want to see the movie before you watch the rest of this, okay? Now's your chance to stop. I mean it. For real. 3, 2, 1. Spoilers. So, in the movie, Carol is repeatedly held back and given arbitrary tests to prove her ability, always by men. The ultimate representation of that power structure is the supreme intelligence. And sure, it appears as a woman, but that's only because that's the person that Carol respects the most, and that's because the whole thing's a justification for the Kree keeping her memories from her, 99% of her power away from her, and her ability to think for herself. On Earth, she wasn't able to fly in combat, so she went from one oppressive military structure to fighting for another oppressive military structure, both of which were creating their own terrorists. I love that the OG Mar-Vell is a woman. I love that they changed Carol's origin in that respect so that it's not from an alien or a man that she gets her power, but it's freaking siphoned directly off of an Infinity Stone. I love the introduction of Monica and Maria Rambeau. I love that Carol is constantly saving Nick Fury's ass, and I love his whole backstory. I love his interaction with Goose. I love Goose as a character a lot. I love the Stan Lee montage and his final cameo, if indeed it is his final cameo. It legitimately had me kind of choked up. All the references for the movie put that happening in about spring of 1995, because if Stanley was reading the script for Mallrats, that makes sense because it wrapped, I think, filming in March of 1995, and the movie came out in October of 1995. And so no doubt's Tragic Kingdom coming out in September 1995, happening as non-diegetic sound. I guess that's excusable, but it doesn't make sense since it actually would have been released after the movie took place, but it makes about as much sense as Carol knowing what Nirvana is, having been away for 6 years. That's all good, but if you need to hit a blunt, please do that right now, because if Mallrats exists in the MCU, that means Stan Lee exists as Stan Lee in the MCU, and not just as a cameo in a bunch of random people, which means that Marvel Comics exist in the MCU. Therefore, they are metafictitious. Thing is directly referenced, as well as the Hulk in Mallrats, but that also means that Ben Affleck exists in the MCU, which means Batman exists in the MCU, so it also means that somehow Michael Rooker, the guy that plays Yondu, exists in the MCU. I just want to know how all of these things are possible, because this created some sort of weird dimensional paradox that I can't wrap my head around. I sort of have mixed feelings about Talos. I love the performance, I love Ben Mendelsohn, but the idea of flipping the Kree and Skrull roles of traditional bad guys, really like the Skrulls as bad guys, frankly. But that aside, How did Talos know that his family was on Lawson's ship if he didn't even know who Lawson was? I thought the third act was pretty cool with her freeing herself, nothing to prove, saving Earth with Goku-level powers. And it took the entire Guardians, the Nova Corps, and a Ravager clan to stop one Kree battlecruiser, barely. And she literally just punched her way through one after sweeping away all of these warheads. Still, that's cool, but it feels a little one-sided because it doesn't feel like there's really anything at stake. Action isn't as fun when it doesn't feel like there's that much of a real struggle. Still, I get that was the point. Perhaps any shortcomings that it has are ultimately that it just came too late. It's a perfected Marvel origin movie, the first Marvel movie with a female lead, the first with the sheer level of power that we're talking about, but for all of those things, it feels like more of the same. And because she never really seems to stand an actual chance of failure, maybe it doesn't hit quite as hard as Carol does. Even so, at $150 million domestic opening weekend, $350 million worldwide, you trolls failed miserably to take down a film over a made-up conspiracy and try and sabotage it to the point that a major movie website had to alter its tracking system when, if you just left it alone, you guys gave it more publicity than you did any effort to take it down. I mean, it's not like with this existing you're not going to get your 15 to 12 male power fantasy superhero movies this year like you are every year for the foreseeable future. It's fine. Thanks everybody for watching Beyond the 30 Seconds. Subscribe if you want to. That'd be chill, but I'm not your dad. This has been the Doomcast. We'll see you next week.